Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. From Stagnation to Progress. Hi, I'm Dianne A, here to talk to you today about moving from being stagnant and stuck to making progress, whatever that looks like. Today, I would like to cover 5 steps or avenues in which to do this. But first, I'd like to speak to you a little bit about your inner genius. Every single one of us has an inner genius. So often, people think that the word genius is only meant for maybe the very smart people, that top 2% of the population, or a genius in a certain thing. But what I'm talking about here expands beyond that. I'm talking about your inner genius, that thing your soul, your heart wants to bring forward, even if you're not sure exactly how. And I believe that every single one of us has an inner genius. I believe that every single one of us has a certain message that we're meant to bring to the world, a gift, if you will. Like, here's my gift. Let me bring my gift to you. And we're all here with one. The cool thing is, all of us have different gifts. So all of us have something different to do. So what is your inner genius? Do you know? Do you want to know? Or maybe you might be a little stuck. Or maybe you're feeling stagnant. You know, these days with this self-quarantine and stay-at-home COVID-19 conversation, the world's changed forever. And a lot of times we can get stuck in that. We can get stuck in the fear. We can get stuck in the, oh no, I don't know what to do. We can get stuck in the constant thinking that probably isn't solving anything other than maybe making us stressed out, right? So this is a time to really say, how can I begin to make progress toward my goals, toward my heart's desire? How can I be of beneficial presence in the universe? How can I keep moving forward in a way that works, whatever that looks like? And for each one of us, that's going to look a little different. So your inner genius is that part of you, that heart's desire, that deep part of you in here that knows what you're here for, meaning what you're here on earth for. Now, sometimes it has to do with what you do for a living or did for a living. Sometimes it has to do with a creative pursuit that you enjoy, like writing music or dance or theater or sewing or something, right? Like we're in my sewing studio now. Or it could have something to do with inspiration or education or an intellectual understanding, right? What about all the people doing research? That's part of their genius, right? I know I love those kinds of things, and friends of mine are like, I can't do that, and the people who all know a lot about math, and then there's the people who are the English, literary people who really appreciate words and syntax and all of that. So we all have a different genius. So the first step is to really get clear on what your genius is. Now, most people identify their genius by what's going on outside of them or how it shows up. Like, my genius is I'm a teacher. Well, a teacher, maybe, is how you're expressing your genius, but that itself is not the genius, okay? Or I am a contractor. I build things. I create things. Well, that's how you express your genius, but that may not be your genius. Your genius is the fuel for how it shows up in the world, for being the contractor, being the teacher, being the doctor, being the creative one or the musician or the athlete. That's how it shows up. So if you look at your whole life, all the different things you've done eventually lead to the genius. They're all fueled by the same thing. Like for me, my inner genius that always is showing up has to do with inspiration and education. And if I look back on my life and on my career, all the things I've done, from being a preschool teacher to working in the public school system and helping teachers with that, to working in home with families, to running rehab centers, to doing mental health, to all of these different things, common denominator is I've been inspiring and educating people in whatever the format looks like. Whether, like now I'm writing books and I have this YouTube channel and podcasts, all of these things are inspired education. So the more I delved in and the more I looked at more and more of the common denominators, the more and more I was able to see that there was a fuel deeper than what it looked like on the outside. Because I think it changes. I think the way we express our genius changes over our lifetime. I don't think the genius changes necessarily. I think the way we express it does, though. So it's so important, I think, to really get more and more clear about deep inside, what is it? And for me, it's education and inspiration. So ask yourself the questions. What's underneath all these things I've done? Because you could have done very different things, not the same careers or different kinds of exciting things and still see the genius. Like, I race sailboats and I'm known for inspiring the crew. So that inspiration comes out in that way, right? Or I do quilting now. It's a new hobby I've taken up and it inspires me and I inspire people because here I am learning it relatively late, if you will, but I'm loving it. So I'm allowing the inspiration to come through that. So it all comes around, right? So now I want to talk a little bit about the 5, they're not really steps, but more like phases we go through as we go from being stagnant or stuck or feeling that kind of, I don't know where to go from here, kind of like the doldrums, into making progress and having forward momentum. Now in the sailing world, if we're becalmed and there's no wind, sailboats don't move in no wind unless you have an engine. But if we're out there and we're not moving and there's no water flowing over the keel and over the rudder, it's very difficult to steer the boat. But if you have a little bit of momentum over the rudder and you can actually steer the boat, it's called having way, right? If we can do that, then we can actually head toward our goal. Now, sometimes when the wind fills in or we get that little tiny bit of movement, that little tiny bit, the beginnings of the momentum, sometimes we have to steer a little bit away from where we really want to go. Sometimes we have to change the way we use our strategy so that we can get where we want to go efficiently. Not always is it a direct line. And so a lot of times in life, people think that once I get moving a little bit, it's a straight shot. And it's not a straight shot, not a straight shot at all. Things change, things move around, life goes in cycles and seasons and spirals, and all kinds of things happen. So, therefore, when we're going through these phases or steps or whatever we want to call them, understand that there is a cycle to things. Things are always moving, things are fluid. And sometimes it might appear like you're heading away from where you want to go in order to get enough momentum to then head more closely to where you want to go. And sometimes what your brain thinks is what is the best thing isn't necessarily it. Sometimes it's better. Most of the time it's better. So just think on those things as I speak, okay? So the first kind of step here is to check out when you had your big aha moment or your epiphany, I call it, right? Like, when did the light bulb go off that you even want to make progress in a direction? Or how did you even figure out that you're stuck or stagnant? Because if you think you're stuck or stagnant, you probably are on some level. And the desire to want to make movement is true. But if being stagnant was meant for you, you wouldn't be noticing it as a problem. You would be going, oh, this is perfect, this is fun. So the first thing to do is notice that aha moment and that epiphany and to explore it, to really check it out. Like, what is the message? What is happening? What information am I getting? What is going on? Because exploring things and educating ourselves about what is happening in these moments really helps us start to see where the momentum can be to help us make our progress. Like there have been times where literally the room that I was in had lit up, and I was like, whoa, what is going on? It was a kind of an emotional, spiritual thing, but it really helped me see things. So for all of us, there's these different ways to see things and to begin to explore the ahas. If something shows up in your life or an idea that just pops in just like that, and it just kind of seems to come out of nowhere, those are the ones I say pay the most attention to. Write it down or record it somehow, because that may not make sense today, but 5 or 6 more of those ahas and more of those kinds of just comments out of nowhere will yield some really great awareness for you. So it really matters. It really matters how you handle it, right? How that you pay attention. So explore and educate the aha moments. Number 2 is to focus on where you're headed, or focus on that emotion, focus on that energy. You know how like athletes, when they're in the zone, you know, like especially if you watch runners or tennis players and their eyes are down a little and they're focused and they're in the zone and there's nothing that will stop them from headed to where they're going. Focus. If you don't have focus, it's hard to get where you're going. If when we're in the sailboat and there's not much wind and we're really sloppy with the steering and sloppy with the sails, we're not going to get anywhere. We need to have focus. If we want to achieve anything, we need to have focus. So it's very important that we do that, okay? So number 2 is having focus. If you're struggling with focus, you might want to pay attention to the goal, because if you keep working toward a goal and you're not getting there and you can't focus, a lot of times it means the goal's impotent and it's time for you to refine the goal a little bit. Number 3 is to incubate, or allow yourself to be pregnant with the ideas, right? And I'm talking allowing everything to kind of, I have a friend of mine who's a cook, and he always says that flavors have to marry, you know, and that's where marinating and coming together. And I made this great soup the other day, and it was better the day after because the flavors could marinate together and blend together in an interesting way. So this incubating time is a time to employ the education and the focus and the new ideas and the inspirations you get, and maybe input from other people you might ask, and let it all come together to make a big soup, right? An inner soup of all the different things that can come together for you. And to let that have time to grow, like yeast grows in bread, right? Those kinds of things, because it takes time, it takes process, it takes putting all the ingredients together and letting them find their way on an inside level. And we live in a world that is so caught up in immediate things, like go, 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 go. I want immediate reward all the time. And the truth is, if we're going to move from being stagnant or stuck, and we're going to start moving toward making progress and moving on, we are going to have to do this in a way that allows it to happen from the inside out, and we start slowly first. We don't run. You're not born and you're running, you know, on day 2 of being alive. You know, you have to learn how to turn over and crawl. And well, some people didn't even crawl, they just start walking. And then once we get our feet under us, then we can run. But it takes a minute to do that. So to give yourself permission as an adult to let things incubate, let things go within, let them come together and marry. I always imagine just a really good sauce or something that it just really comes together. In the quilting world, they call it auditioning, like audition the fabric and audition the thread and audition this kind of stitch to go, and check out different things and sit with it and look at it and allow the creative juices and what you're seeing visually to marinate, and then you'll know as the experts tell me, and then it starts speaking to you, you know, use this stitch, what about that? When they first taught me that, I thought, what? That is goofy. But you know what? That's how it works. Though their words were new to me, the ideas were new to me in that arena. But the moment I gave myself permission to hear what they had to say and learn that, I was able to incubate and bring together the ideas and the creativity. And so guess what happened? Beautiful things came. If I'd have let my ego and my head just say, this is just how I'm going to do it, and this is the only way to do it, it would have come out. But it wouldn't have the creative juice. It wouldn't have the flair. It wouldn't have the depth that it has when I follow the directions of other people who know better than I do. And I have to give myself permission to let things incubate inside so that as they express out of me, there's something beautiful. Okay? Then the next step is to allow your insight and your awareness to expand. Allowing your insight and your awareness to expand. And this is a big one because a lot of visionaries, a lot of leaders, a lot of smart people tend to overthink. Think. And thinking puts us in little tiny boxes. When all we do is think, we are restricting our opportunity, we're restricting our excitement, we're restricting the possibilities, we are just narrowing. And the truth is, if we're going to move into making progress and we're going to get unstuck, we want to do exactly the opposite. We want to be expanding. We want to allow our insight and our intuition and our awareness to open the doors to other possibilities. The more open we are to other possibilities, the better things are. That's the way it works. It's pretty interesting, really. So we want to allow our insights and awareness to expand. Now, for me, I get a lot of my insights at night, usually around 3 or 4 in the morning, when I kind of get frustrated that, oh my God, I'm waking up again. But now I have a voice recorder next to my bed, and if there's an insightful idea or a good idea, I say it out loud. So the voice-activated voice recorder picks it up, message up, and I can go back to sleep without having to turn a light on and write it down. And I don't lose it that way, right? So we expand the insights and awarenesses. Another thing that's a good idea is to go walk in nature. Hug an oak tree, an old oak tree, right? Or go hang out next to a lake and watch the ducks or the bunnies. Do something that allows you to connect with the greater, to allow yourself to expand beyond the limited box thinking of your brain. Because when you're stuck in figuring, you're going to miss most of the great insights and awareness that help us expand. Just remember that the universe is always expanding. And so we're meant to always be expanding. So when we're stuck or we're trying to go back to something, we're not going to get unstuck. We're going to stay stuck. We're not going to be able to make progress if we're trying to hold on to the old or we're refusing to come out of the box. And the last step is to follow through and let the universe give you feedback. In other words, take your action and follow through with what it is that you're led to do, or your inspired idea, or your creative project, or your action necessary to get the movement, the water going, right? Whatever that is, follow through and take action. And then also have feedback on the action. We live in an amazing universe that gives us unbelievably great feedback all the time. We're always getting feedback on how we're doing, how we're feeling, what's going on, the progress toward where we're going, like mile markers all the time. We're always getting feedback. Always. Spiritually feedback, mental feedback, emotional feedback, physical feedback, always. So pay attention to it. You'll know, you've done it before where your gut said, oh, no, don't do it. And your brain goes, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll do it anyway. And then you ended up in trouble, right? You ended up feeling upset. So let's not do that. Let's just start right now, moving forward. Okay? Into feedback. Now, the feedback means I make adjustments. The feedback means that I'm able to adjust my course of action. Because as, like to use my sailing analogy, as the wind starts picking up and the boat starts making momentum, now I have more steerage. Now I have more control over where I put the boat and take the boat and what I do with the boat. If I try to change too quickly, too fast, I could stall, which is like putting a brake on. We don't want to do that. So we want to really pay attention to the feedback as things start changing. And that gives us the opportunity to decide how to do what we're doing here to there. Make sense? I think it does. So those are the 5 steps or 5 arenas, and they kind of go together in these different interesting ways. And it's so important to be able to really start to say, okay, if I want to be unstuck and I want to start making progress, I have to be willing to connect to my inner genius. I have to be willing to look within me and see what the fuel is for the flame and the goodness I bring to the world. What is it? And I have to be willing to own it. And so often we are trained that we're not good enough, or we can't measure up, or there's something wrong with us, and we don't see the beauty right in front of us. So that's the first step, really, is to get really clear on that and really know, and then start to make the movement toward your progress and getting unstuck. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that sounds easy, but it's really not, and I've been stuck for a long time. Yes, some of us have been stuck for a really long time. And some of us haven't been stuck for very long, but we even think we're getting a little stuck, and we just like kind of hurry and do anything to get unstuck. So remember I talked about the feedback from the universe? What we do that makes it very effective if you've been stuck even for a long time is do something. Anything toward your goal. Not that's going to hurt you, right? Something good toward your goal. Anything. Because anything gets you some input from the universe that gets you moving a little bit, so that now you can start getting more and more feedback and make better and better decisions. Sometimes it takes just doing one thing. You know that old phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? It's so important to do one thing. And so when I get up every morning, I have a slim list, 3 things that I want to get done in that day. 3 things, that's it. Slim list, 3 things. If I do more than that toward my progress on the goals, great. But the 3 things is what I aim for. Now, if I only get 2 done, or I get 1 done, or maybe one day I had all these 3 things lined up, and I ended up with my stomach really bothering me, and I was just kind of off all day. So I rested. I didn't do any of them because I was taking care of myself first, right? So you're allowed to change your mind as long as it's getting you toward where you want to go. So you at least do 1 or do 2 or do 3. I do 3 a day because our brain can do 3 things, right? Like do a video, call somebody and tell them you love them, and go for a walk. They don't have to be all toward a work thing, right? And just take action. The more action you take, and the more different kinds of action you take, and the more variety you have, the more fulfilled you are, the more progress you make, and the more momentum you have, so that getting stuck and stagnant kind of never really happen and elude you. So there's 2 things I want to mention here at the end, and that is that patience and action are required. Now, patience is a form of action, and taking action is required if you want to come out of that stagnant, stuck spot in any area of life. We have to be willing to do something. Have to be. Sometimes the doing something is being patient with ourselves, but more often than not, it's about taking action. So what I ask myself when I want to make a change is I ask 2 questions. What am I willing to do? And what am I willing to no longer do? Because if I'm not willing to drop the old behaviors that got me stuck to start with, it's going to be very difficult to move forward. So sometimes the powerful question really is, what am I willing to no longer do? What am I willing to stop doing that's been getting in my way? And go from there. So those are some of the steps for how we can move from being stagnant into making progress in our lives. That's how we get going. And then we just keep recycling from paying attention to the aha moments and taking action and getting feedback and letting our insights and our inspiration kind of incubate inside of us as we go. And then pretty soon, it's like this beautiful, well-oiled machine and system that rests, because we're human beings, not human doings, and takes action in a healthy way because we're human beings, not human doings. It's beautiful, the rhythm of our lives. So I've hope that this video has helped you get unstuck, or have some ideas for how to get unstuck and make progress in your life. You can visit me on Instagram. You can see me on Facebook. You can listen to more of the podcasts and the interviews I do in order to help inspire you to have hope, to move forward, and to realize that you are a really amazing human being. And even on those dark nights, or when we don't feel like we really are amazing. So from my heart to your heart, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting me and my work. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, maybe share the video if it meant something to you, and certainly give me some feedback. If you have any topic requests or anything you'd like me to talk about, just give me a note and I'm happy to do whatever I can to serve you, because that's what I'm here for. And again, thank you very much for watching. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.